Welcome back to Two Guys in the Outdoors. Today's show is going to be really good. We're going to be talking about backcountry camping. We're going to just get into the background of our two visitors, as well as some practicing and some training aspects for high country and backcountry camping. Hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe, share with another, leave a comment, and like the show. Welcome back to Two Guys in the Outdoors. And we got an exciting show for you tonight, a bit away from our normal hunting sessions. This one I think is going to be kind of neat because I'm going to learn. I think Jason, you told me the other night that you're wanting to learn from this. So backcountry camping. So let's start off. I'm going to go ahead and start off. And Jason, you and I might as well start off with our normal thing, and then we'll hand it over to the experts.
All right. Sounds like a plan to me.
So the only thing, I didn't really do a whole lot in the outdoors other than just preparing for this next hunting season. Always trying to do a little bit with my bow. If it's not actually flinging an arrow, it's at least getting the muscles, going, and trying to kick up the exercise a bit. And getting ready I'm going to try to do some just not backcountry camping, but at least maybe the back of the pickup truck camping.
I saw that.
You can get pretty far up in the mountains in a pickup now, depending on where you go.
Yep.
So that's me. Jason, what'd you do in the past week?
Oh man, I finally got the roof on my house, which is a huge burden off my shoulders. So I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. Yeah, just playing around a little bit. I was at Bob's house the other day and finally picking my bow back up again because I've had other priorities, and so it feels good to get the bow back in the hands because, hey, let's face it, we're almost through July. Bow season, squirrel season, dove season and squirrel season is knocking on the door here in September. And then the first weekend in October, you can't beat the smile off of Mike's face with bow season coming in. So, but yeah, good stuff.
Daybreak, October 7th.
Yeah.
Yep.
But who's counting? It's only 2.5 months away.
Yeah.
And
12 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what did you do in the outdoors this past?
As soon as I got off work on Thursday, I headed up to the hunt club and worked on a couple of four-wheeler paths, clearing the path so you can get through without hitting your face with blackberry vines or trees overhanging. So I did a lot of trimming and cutting with the chainsaw Friday and Saturday. Sunday took a little break, come home, and then had to power wash the house. But and then once I got home, got the house all washed, and then I ended up changing out broadheads because I like to change broadheads every year. And the reason I do that is because when I teach my international bow hunter education classes, I get a lot of questions about broadheads. So I actually try a different one every year. So this year I'm going to shoot the QAD Exodus, a fixed blade, and try that out. On my traditional stuff, I stay standard. I shoot the Helix broadhead fixed blades. But on my compound bow, I'm going to try the QAD this year. I shot the dead meats last year. Worked excellent. I give them a high review. They work great. I took them to Africa with me, and I harvested a couple nice animals with them. And but I'm going to try the QAD Exodus this year. Give that a shot. So, of course, starting our pre-prep, as Bob knows, Jason, you're more than welcome to come. But we got the bear hunt coming up, going up to Maine. So we're getting Bob out beyond the boundaries of Virginia.
That's right.
There you go.
But to drag him to Africa with me next time.
There you go.
And I want to, but let's see if my pocketbook will let me.
Hey, you'd be surprised.
Okay. How about you, Luis?
Yeah, good to see everybody again. This past weekend, Sunday evening, I haven't really done this in a while, but I used to be really big into trail running. So now that it's summer and the sun is out for longer, I went for a nice trail run out in Manassas Battlefield Park. Just busted out some of the old trail running equipment. Um, just had a good time, just kind of running out there and uh, just remembering kind of what it was like to run with some scenery versus like in a gym.
That's a nice place to run. I've hiked all those trails up there at that battlefield.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. You two are the experts when it comes to backcountry camping. So let's start off at the beginning, and let's give us a little bit of background about yourselves. What got you into backcountry camping, and why do you do it? So, who wants to go first?
Well, just from a hunting aspect, that's how I got started into it, was from hunting. Now I've always liked backpacking and that. I did it with the scouts and all through my adult life, camping, that kind of stuff. I never got into it really big other than until I started elk hunting out west in Colorado. And Jason knows, and I think you do too, Bob, Ben Unruh is the one that kind of got me into elk hunting out in Colorado. And we hunt in the high country up there. We hunt up in the Gunnison National Forest, and it's pretty remote where we're at now. Ours was a unique situation that his brothers and that we had a good group go, and we do basically a base camp. And then Ben and I and another friend of ours, Brad Pearson, spike camped out from there. So that's where I really got into the backpack hunting aspect of it, was spike camping out from our base camp. And for me, it was a learning experience because, and I'm sure Luis will attest to this, it's all about weight when you get up, especially in the high country and you're moving around and trying to be stealthy and all that kind of stuff. It's all about weight and weight management, and what you're capable of carrying on your back. And I will say all of that, it all with, you need to probably establish a good training program to be in shape, to be able to go hike in the backcountry. And then I will also add to that, I would add, be very, very cognizant with your training about expanding your lung capacity, because if you're going to be backpacking at altitude, you need to be very conscious of altitude sickness, and because altitude sickness will kill you if you're not careful. So when you start hiking in up around 9,000 feet and above, it can be a serious problem for you. So I would predicate anything with have a good training regimen before you get into backpack and high country type stuff. So, and then again, it's what your wallet can afford, because I will tell you from experience, going lightweight is not cheap, and going with quality equipment is not cheap. So, and I know Luis can attest to that. So, I mean, it can get expensive. Now, I mean, you can do it cheaper, but if you want high end stuff, if you're going to do it a lot, I would invest the extra money and get quality name brand equipment. And we'll probably be talking about the type of equipment and pieces of equipment as we go along this evening. So, but I would predicate my little piece on that. But mine started with elk hunting in the high country.
Okay. What about you, Luis? What got you started?
So for me, it was a little bit different. So originally I would just like to go running. Like I said, I would just go running around my neighborhood, but then I got kind of tired of looking at the same scenery. So I started to want to run with some scenery. And living out here in Manassas, I started running out to Manassas Battlefield Park. And so that's kind of what started getting me more into trail running, with elevation change, just kind of being out. But then I kind of wanted to start taking that same scenery, and I thought, well, I really like this, so why not go running in the mountains? And then I started running in the mountains, and I really love the scenery, the fresh air. The elevation change definitely was something that was new to me. I didn't really consider that it's colder up there. The elevation change is different. So my running experience out there was very different than it was just on, more stable ground or kind of further down to the bottom of the mountains. And I just really love that environment. And so I was always kind of bummed to have to go home at the end of the day after a nice run. I thought, it'd be nice to kind of cook something up and just kind of stay out here. But I definitely wasn't in a position a couple years ago to do that. So I just started really small and just going hiking. And I would go hiking a lot. And the more trips I took, the more I realized how unprepared I really was. And thankfully nothing crazy, happened, but I just kind of realized each time I went, I would always take notes on my phone of what I wish I had done differently next time. So that could be bringing like something to cover my head from all the bugs, or that could be a headlamp. I've gotten caught out there a couple of times and thought I could just rely on my flashlight on my phone. But then when your phone is looking for signal out there, your battery dies a lot quicker. And so I just kind of started accumulating things, and it slowly started moving into just taking day trips out hiking. And then I kind of started going down the rabbit hole of all the cool gear and all the little gadgets and stuff. And then I thought, man, I really want to become well versed in this. And so I remember I made a goal to say I want to do an overnight trip, and I started really small in like campsites around people. And I mean that's great and everything, but there's just a lot of families out there. They play music. A lot of people are grilling. It's a very social experience, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. I kind of wanted to get away a little bit more, connect with nature on my own. So I started working my way towards backcountry camping, which is just like out there, like on the mountain. And the first place and the place where I've camped more than anywhere is in my backyard. So I just started sleeping in my backyard. And if you're lucky enough to have enough space to do that, just stay close to home first. And I just started sleeping back there. And there was a lot of nights where I started off out there and then I would come running inside because I'm like, I wasn't ready for this. And then I just kind of started, switching gear out over time. And that's one of the things that I figured we'd talk about in a bit. But, and then as I grew more comfortable, I kind of finally got my gear in line. And then I finally took my first trip, and I got to say, it was miserable. And it was miserable because I didn't, again, I mean, it was a learning experience. And so, I went out there and I definitely, I loved it, but I also hated it at the same time. But the basic takeaway was that over time, I just kind of started learning more and more and more, and I had to fall forward a lot. And then eventually it got to the point where I kind of set up my gear. I learned how to layer my clothing. I learned how to map out my trips. And I learned how to plan for the unplanned, and started educating myself. And then it became more of an enjoyable experience. And so when I tell people now, oh, I like to hike up the mountain and just kind of have everything on my backpack and call it a night and hang out, and then come back tomorrow, people think I'm crazy. But if you really take the time to grow knowledgeable and learn all of the ins and outs, and it's going to take some time, it could be a really enjoyable experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you tweak your equipment list every time you go.
Absolutely.
I mean, after my first trip out, I thought I had good stuff, and it was like, nah. And then I saw what other guys were carrying. And it's like, maybe I might want to switch up to that or this, that, or the other. But yeah, but equipment's a big part of it. And like I said, you got to have good equipment, because especially if you're hunting, because you're going to be beating it around in a pack, walking around in it all day, until you set your camp up in the evening. And usually you're setting it up after dark. So you got to be very, very familiar with your stuff and how you pack it. And how you pack a backpack is really a key thing to learn how to do too, with weight distribution, especially when you're in a hunting situation where we are in Colorado. It's very rocky, very, very mountainous. And so, good boots, all that kind of stuff goes without saying. But having that weight distribution in that pack is a vital importance to keep from falling down the mountainside or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, because you will get in situations hunting where you're crossing over obstacles and stuff with a 50-pound pack. it can get it can get interesting. So that's another thing to think about when you get your equipment together, is your weight and your weight distribution back.
You know, I love, you know, I'm that guy. Mike knows it. Bob knows. I think everybody that knows me, I'm that guy that's keep it simple and go and do it. And I love, Luis, you saying, "Hey, I camped in my backyard," and then you started doing some day trips, you know, and you learn from those experiences. You know, I know Mike. He's got a huge military background. He's been put in situations that you know, nobody wants to be in. But you know, every time you do something like this, you know, whether it's hunting, backcountry camping, or spike camping when you're hunting big game out west somewhere, you know, you two have very similar stories about always changing equipment, um, you know, learning as you're going. And you know, I think that's for somebody brand spanking new, you know, I think you need to start out maybe in your backyard
Yeah.
or someplace to where, hey, I can retreat to the vehicle if there's an issue,
Yeah.
or whatever. So that's cool. I've
Yeah.
learned a ton already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would say, you know, knowledge definitely should come first. Like I would always say, you know, it's a great idea to just get out there and do it. But under these circumstances, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it in that way. Just because it could, and its worst case scenarios come down to a life or death situation, especially if you decide to go at it alone, which crazy enough, I decided to do. However, if I go like all the way back, there were other times where I had tapped into friends and people that I knew who had done it before. So unlike hunting, where I never knew anybody who did anything like that, I did have a few friends here and there that I wouldn't say they were backpackers, but they had been out camping before. So I had gotten to ask them a couple of questions and have things to consider. And then they had recommended, you know, picking a place that was really close to home. So that if I was like listening to this and I had never been out backcountry camping before, the number one step that I would tell people is like choose your location, like choose an easy destination. So first is like, you know, find your local park or just wherever it is that you could go camping. And then just do some reconnaissance work, you know, just go out there for a day hike. As you go out there, you're going to go from, you know, just your tennis shoes to realizing that hiking boots make a world of a difference. You know, picking a place close to home, and there's no place like home. So just choosing your backyard, and just sleep out there. You know, if you could borrow stuff, then borrow it. If you can have the person that you're borrowing it from just kind of share with you a little bit about the equipment. Um, and it doesn't have to be this like huge overnight trip. Like honestly, when I first was looking to do my first backcountry trip, it was like maybe like a mile or two in. Because I honestly was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like freak out. I don't know if this is going to be something that, you know, because again, you know, being a city guy, like I wasn't used to going out there. So I didn't really have anybody that I could just call, hey, you know, what do I do in this situation? Um, and then just, you know, being mindful of when you are out there, yeah, like the elevation change, that's a big thing. Um, and then choosing a place that's well populated, that has a lot of people. Realistically, I wanted to backcountry camp to get away from people. um that's on it, like that's my honest to god like reason for why I wanted to do it. But in order to, you know, in order to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. So I decided to try to do campsites first. Now that was completely what I didn't want to do, but I got the experience of sleeping outside. I got the experience of setting up the tent. And that was also a lot of fun too, is just, you know, setting up the equipment in the backyard, just doing everything at home. Um, and then, I mean, I could keep going and going, but I want to make sure I leave room for others to share too.
Yeah, I did the same thing you did, Luis. When I got my equipment, I mean, I was used to setting up big stuff in the military, and then with my background, we did a lot of individual, small squad type stuff. But when you got lightweight and setting up stuff for the first time, that would be one of my recommendations. Is if you do get new equipment, backyard's perfect place to set it up and practice with it, because a lot of times in the back country, if you're hunting or whatever, like I said earlier, you're going to be setting up probably at dark or just before dark. So having that ability to know how to set your equipment up pretty quick, especially your tent, that thing, that because if it starts getting weather coming in, you want to get your tent up so you can get your some kind of vegetable so you can keep your equipment dry, keep your clothes dry at least, and your boots. So things like that. It's kind of things you need to think about. It's prioritizing when you set your little camps up, that kind of stuff. We in hunting, we didn't do a whole lot. I mean, we had the three of us, we all had bivy tents. We had our own, backpack with our stuff in it. And I think the max any of us had was 50 pounds, which is probably about optimal is what you want to be toting around in the mountains anyway. And then the other thing was for airline purposes. When I flew out there, I flew out with my pack. I didn't take anything else with me. So and my bow, and that was it. And I left my bow case in the base camp. So everywhere I went, I either had my backpack, my bow in hand, and that was it. So you got to get used to carrying that. So as part of my training regimen around here, I've got a couple of hills in my neighborhood, and I've got an old railroad bed behind my house. I would actually walk on the side of that railroad bed to simulate walking on the side of some of these rock slides you got to go down. So crossing on some of these mountain faces out in Colorado. So, and then I would go up and down the hill, but I had to get myself ready for the altitude. I had what was called a Boss Raton oxygen trainer. It's just a mouthpiece, and it has like 10 different sizes of little hole inserts that you can put into it. And you put that in, and of course, the larger hole is the easier it is to breathe. So the first couple of weeks, I'd use the large one, and then the next week, I'd switch to a next smaller one, and to where I got down to the smallest one and walking up and down. I was sucking some wind. I'm telling you that right now. When you put that small one in, but that was part of my training regimen because I knew we were going to be at altitude, and so I would use one of those oxygen trainers. Some guys wear those masks. You see them running in them in the gym. I didn't like that. I wanted something that I could control, how much oxygen I could get at any one time. So you just take and pop the inserts in and out on that oxygen trainer. So I think that helped me a lot, especially backpacking up in the high country. So, but that was part of my prep. So
Totally agree. Like, try to get as physically ready as possible. Start going for walks on a daily basis. Start trying to go for walks with places with hills. If you could just kind of bring a backpack, if you could go out hiking, just a day hike, it's kind of a win-win.
Really hope you liked that show. We enjoyed giving it to you. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment.